All right. Welcome back, or welcome. If this is the first time you're joining us, for all I know, this could be the first time and you're thinking, I don't know who you are right now. So I'm Heidi Hanna, and I have put on the fourth annual Global Stress Summit recently, just this last weekend, and it has been just a beautiful experience. This is actually a kind of post-summit session slash Wednesday happy hour slash getting to hang out with a dear friend and colleague of mine. So welcome to those of you who are joining us now live on Zoom. Very exciting to have you here with us. And of course, we're recording as well so that we can post this with the rest of the Global Stress Summit. So for those of you who are live, I just want to set a little bit of guidance for our discussion tonight. We always want this to be as interactive as possible. We want this to be about you and you getting your questions answered, your curiosity filled. If you're a highly sensitive person, your connection needs met, even though we're doing this virtually. I know how important that is for all of us right now. So some of you who have been joining us already regularly know the deal. You're starting to say hello, and I love that so much. Thank you. Please go ahead and open the chat box if you are with us live on Zoom right now, and take just a moment to first set your settings so that it is reaching all panelists and attendees, or it should say everyone in the room. A lot of times it will default to just panelists, and then we're the only ones that get to see your comments, and that's not fair. So we want everyone to be able to see what you all are saying to us, and I want to encourage you to start by just letting us know where you are streaming in from. So Sammy, Coach Sammy, I know has been looking forward to this for so long. This has to be at least the fourth or fifth time she's had a chance to work with you, Joan, through our different webinars and trainings. And she's one of the many who say, do you think that you would train me? And so many of our stress mastery educators have asked me that over the last couple of years. I want to be able to teach her stuff. It's so valuable. And I know you know that, Joan. So to be continued. It's definitely something I think in the works. So welcome, Sammy. We also have Laura in Oklahoma. John is in the marina in San Diego. So I don't know if it's John and Sue, our friend Scottish Sue, or if they have a whole boat party going on again. But either way, I want to say hello to you guys. We have, wow, this is a long name, so I don't know exactly who this is, but we've got someone in Mexico City, we've got Colorado, Kevin in Vancouver, Canada, beautiful. Teresa is over in the DC area, and I'm seeing a lot of my stress sensitive and highly sensitive people friends here. So I welcome you guys back to this discussion, and I'll share a little bit more about what that means here in just a moment. Excited to see a new participant, Chris, in Singapore, bringing the global into global in a big way. And we've had a lot of people actually streaming in from across the globe, and it always depends on timing as to whether or not it works up to have you guys here with us live. And then Jana is here in Los Angeles, one of the students that I have the pleasure to work with this semester in our Harvard Brain Health and Performance course. So lovely to see you, and Mark in Holland. So here we go, expanding across the globe, which is so beautiful and fun. And then lots of people right here in sunny California, Mindy and Arch and others. And I have to say, we can actually say sunny California today, which is awesome. The sun is out. It is warm again. It's a little on the extra warm and dry side, but it's kind of refreshing since we haven't had that in a while. We have someone, Itzel, it looks like, in Panama. Welcome to you as well. And it sounds like the boat party is coming. Oh, Jessica in Puerto Rico. Beautiful. I love this. And yes, Sammy points out I am wearing another Do Love t-shirt. I was telling Joan as we got logged on that I'm not sure gray is really my color, but I just was feeling a little like chill. And for those of you who don't know, a good friend of mine, Susan Bailey, who lives in Detroit, I've worked with her over many, many years, just started producing these t-shirts, Do Love. And they're super soft, and as a highly sensitive person, that's really important to me. I can't handle fabrics that are scratchy or too tight or anything. So I love these shirts. And we actually asked her if she would do a special run of them for us for the summit and donate proceeds back to our various programming. So what we've decided to do moving forward is we're going to donate all of those proceeds to our mental health program for college students. So that's what everything now is starting to ramp up for. You guys are going to hear more about that throughout the month of May, and a specific project I know you're going to be excited about starting May 1st. So I'll share more information with you guys about that soon. So you can actually go onto our website, and Sammy, maybe you can even find the link. I don't have it with me. She read my mind. She already posted it. Thank you. You can go to HeidiHanna.com/do-love. And again, the proceeds are going to get donated to our college mental health program. So that would be cool. Sonia is here again. Lovely to see you. Thanks for connecting with me on LinkedIn. Sonia is in Melbourne, Australia. And we were actually planning on having one of our Global Stress Summit hubs in Sydney. I've actually spent time in Sydney and Melbourne both, as well as another place that slips my mind at the moment, but I'm going to think of it. It's trying to work its way out. I can see it in my little brain. Adelaide. See how that happens when you just let it go for a second. So I love, love, love Australia. So hopefully next year we will be able to do our summit hubs again. We had them scheduled in Sydney, Johannesburg, London, in addition to 4 cities across the United States. And we want to be able to do that again. In fact, Sean's here. How cool. Sean Waters is actually our hub host from Johannesburg. So he is here with us live. I'm so glad you could make it. Beautiful. And many, many others. So you guys keep saying hello to each other there in the chat box. I want to remind you that if you have a question that you would like to have answered by Dr. Joan throughout the time together, please put that in the Q&A box. That'll just make it easier for me to facilitate that as we go along. And with that, just want to let you know a couple of logistics. So as I said, this is really the closing session for the Global Stress Summit, but we had such an amazing turnout. We actually had just about 1,000 people who joined us at various times throughout the weekend, which is incredible, especially with so much going on and so much information and so many virtual opportunities right now. It's kind of hard to know how to prioritize all of that. So what we decided to do is just leave it open, let you guys continue to share the information. So please do, if you think this is helpful, share that with people you know. They can go to globalstresssummit.com and still have access to all the recordings. Plus, we will be doing a monthly free stress mastery webinar. We will be doing these Wednesday hump day happy hours, at least temporarily, especially for highly sensitive people. And we have a couple other things like that that will be happening throughout the year. Just keeping in mind that we're navigating and trying to find the right pace to make sure we're giving you all good content, but not overstimulating or over-informing you either. So we're trying to mix it up a little bit. So with that, I do want to just quickly introduce my friend, Dr. Joan Rosenberg. And I'm just going to say, without reading a script or, having any specific information, because her bio is available on our website, and you can click on her photo and it will give you all the links to access her information. And of course, we'll post that here below the recording for you as well. Joan has become such a dear friend. I actually first found out about her through a colleague of mine, John Asaraf, where we were both serving on his faculty for his program called NeuroGym. And so we would do these different trainings, and I actually saw her at another event, and I felt like a little weird saying, I know you, I've watched your videos, and we're kind of in this, associated with the same program, and we just became fast friends that way. So it was interesting at that collegial level, which still always feels weird to me when I see people that I've studied and followed for a long time and get to connect as peers. But then also she just helped me so much, just even over the last, year, and then I could say 6 months, and then I could say 6 weeks, and then I could probably say 6 minutes, because there's always a nugget that I get literally every time I talk to you. So the things I would say, and I just want to share with you guys that have been most powerful for me recently, have been, first of all, reading her book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Love, which is about so much more than what it sounds, and she'll talk more about that. It is so powerful. And the steps are so important. And it's one of the few books that I will go back to time and time again and just go a little deeper and say, what's in here for me right now? And a specific chapter, and I know something she'll talk more about speaking your truth. And I think especially as highly sensitive people, we've been taught and probably trained over our lifetime to bottle up our feelings and our emotions. And in fact, I can think of many scenarios where I was told that what I was feeling wasn't actually what I was feeling. And I've shared this with Joan before, where now when I do feel that, it's almost like I can't access it because I've been taught so often to just push that down, play small, my whole physical body. We were just talking about something that makes me feel a little embarrassed because it's exciting, and then I feel like I'm bragging and my face gets hot and my shoulders cave in, and it's like I want to play small, and she's going, don't play small, own it. And so I'm practicing that. I think we all need that. You know, regardless of what you see in people, especially highly sensitive people, we really struggle to get our voice out there, even if you're a professional speaker, trust me. So I've had some situations recently where I was just completely overwhelmed. My whole nervous system was actually shutting down. And I had a moment where physically that was happening, and I got to spend some time with Joan. And one of the coolest things I remember, Joan, was you actually saying, like, what do you need right now? Is it helpful for me to be here? Do you need to be alone? It was like giving me permission to really ask myself, what do I need? And we ended up sitting there and having a meal together, but being okay not talking. And we were actually laughing about the fact that, well, if we're quiet, but we're sitting together, people will probably think I'm having a breakdown and I need some private time. So then we can just be quiet. And it worked out beautifully. So I know that's a long introduction, but I feel like an introduction like that, that says like, what she's going to teach us tonight, this is the real deal. This is stuff you can use right away, little things to help you not feel so overwhelmed, and then like big things that will actually be a game changer. And I've had those recently, game changer conversations with professional clients where I stood up for myself in a compassionate and kind way, but I stood up for myself, and it made the relationship better.
Yep.
And we were closer as a result of it. And I was so terrified that I was going to ruin something. So I want you all to have that benefit as well. She's going to talk about her process. We're going to share more resources with you. So with that, I've taken up enough time already. You guys remember, discussion in the chat, questions in Q&A. We're going to pause from time to time and answer your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Joan, thank you again for being here.
Oh my,
Wisdom.
anything for you, Heidi. So I'm all in. So I just adore you, and thank you for the kind words. Let me, what I wanted to do is actually just kind of jump right in, and I think if I provide a context for all of you, it'll make a lot more sense. So it's brief, and it tags back to me in my childhood. So no, I'm not going to regale you with some long story about all the pain and suffering. But I started out as a very shy and sensitive child, so I understand something about that sensitivity, and I was also bullied throughout childhood and into my adolescence. So I have that as a background, part of my background experience as well. But I would look over at my peers, and I would see them all kind of clustered together off to one side, and I'd look over to them or look at them and see them laughing and connected, and there's just a sense of belonging and confident, and it's like I want what they have, because I felt different and I felt like I didn't belong, and I surely wasn't confident. And so throughout my childhood and as I got older, one of the big questions that percolated for me or started to surface and bubble up was, how does someone develop confidence? Because I knew that if I went to go stand by them, it wasn't going to happen. So confidence is not contagious in that way. So it was like that was out. So that's the first question. It's like, how does someone develop confidence or be confident? Because I wanted it. And then as I got into my professional life, a second question emerged. And what I noticed is, I was working with clients, and I'm a psychologist, what I noticed is that as much as thinking gets in the way, and it does, don't get me wrong here, and make it difficult for people to actually experience well-being or confidence or a whole lot of other things that are really good. What I noticed is that one's difficulty with unpleasant feelings actually made things a whole lot worse and was much more challenging. And so the second question for me was, how does someone, what makes it so difficult for someone to tolerate unpleasant feelings? So now I've got these two questions going. And then of course the years go by, right? So, and we're talking decades. I have to own that too. We're talking decades. And it turns out that the answer to the first question, the answer to the second question, actually answers the first question. So the difficulty, or the way one deals with, experiences, or moves through unpleasant feelings is actually the answer, the foundational answer to how someone develops confidence. And that's what I want to walk through a bit today, is to take you through some of the main concepts in my approach, and then to see how you can apply a few of them. Because there's if I got started, I'd probably be here for, I don't know, at least half a day. So I can give you as much as a really healthy taste, and then we can kind of go from there. So, and Heidi, please stop me anywhere along the way, and we'll if there's stuff that you want me to really highlight. Yeah. And so let's dig right into it. The concept that I really want people to understand, this is the foundational piece for you to get, is how to deal with difficult feelings, or what makes them so difficult, and then to give you a strategy to handle that very differently. As soon as you hear it, you can start to play with it and experiment with it. And that's part of the beauty of it. Much of my work, if you start to apply it right away, you'll notice changes actually right away. And so what I talk about in terms of dealing with unpleasant feelings is I talk about a formula. And the formula is 1 choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds. So the 1 choice has to do with awareness, and it's awareness as opposed to avoidance. And we can all get lost in avoidance. We can be on screens or social media. We can shop. We can use any kind of substances, alcohol, or other kind of drugs. We can eat. We can view pornography. We can engage in too much sex, if that's possible. But you've got the list. Or in my case, it's finding things that are more nuanced. I think of anxiety as a distraction. I think of harsh self-criticism as a distraction. I think of having feelings about having feelings as a way to distract. So there's lots of different ways to avoid. And my goal is actually to have you do none of that. Instead, the 1 choice has to do with choosing awareness as opposed to all that avoidance. And what is it that I want you to do? I want you to be as aware of and in touch with as much of your moment-to-moment experience as possible. So the first leaning into is awareness. Choose awareness. Then the second part is 8 feelings. And again, for me, it was noticing that the same feelings kept on cropping up over and over and over. And if someone didn't allow themselves to experience and move through these with some relative ease, then what ended up happening is that they didn't feel as capable in life. So here are the 8. Sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. So why those 8? Again, super quick. So if you're taking notes, sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. Why these 8? Because these 8 are the most common, everyday, spontaneous reactions to things not turning out the way that you need or perceive you need, or the way you want. So the essence of it has to do with the everydayness of these feelings. Because if you thought about your past week, there was probably some time in the past week that you felt 1 or more of those feelings. And so that's what I want people to do. It's be able to work with the everydayness of those reactions. So then, okay, then what's the answer? Well, the answer comes in the 90 seconds. So we have one choice, 8 feelings, 90 seconds. And the 90 seconds actually is the method to dealing with the 8 unpleasant feelings, except what I'm going to focus you in on is once you learn the method, it's understanding that the method works for all 8, that it works for all 8 all of the time. And the real focus and the real kind of elegance, if you will, to the approach that I talk about is centered on the 8 feelings. So that's what I'm going to keep on dialing us back to. So let's talk about the 90 seconds then. The Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor talked about in her book, My Stroke of Insight. She's a Harvard-trained neuroscientist, and she made the observation in that book that when a feeling gets triggered, and there's a rush of biochemicals into the bloodstream, and that rush of biochemicals activates bodily sensations, and then those same biochemicals flush out of the bloodstream. So we have this rush and flush, but in that middle, there's something that's that rush activates bodily sensations. So let's break that down a little bit further. When the neuroscience started to flourish, and the findings really started to come out much more in the early 2000s. That's when it hit the presses much more. And stress literature was out much earlier, but the neuroscience was not. The key here is that what's talked about in that neuroscience literature is that when most of us experience something emotionally, we experience it as a bodily sensation first. So think about that. So examples, so let's say I get embarrassed and you see redness here in my chest and into my neck and into my face. I feel the heat, and that's the bodily sensation I'm experiencing. You might see the redness, I experience the heat. So the heat's the bodily sensation. Or let's say if I get sad, I feel a downward sensation, or disappointed, I feel a downward sensation in my chest. Or I have clients that will describe when they get angry, they feel heat in their arms or heat in the back of the neck, right? So understand that it's going to be different for each one of you. What you feel is unique to each one of you. But the idea here is, again, that you come to know what you're feeling emotionally through that bodily sensation. And so that's the piece it's one of the pieces that Dr. Taylor's talking about. But the second thing that's also, and then this, let me just do it as opposed to tell you what I'm going to do. So the other piece for me is I was always telling people to ride these waves. So what waves are we riding? We're riding bodily sensation waves so that we can know what we're feeling emotionally. But I had to get somebody to be able to stay present to it. And the notion that this rush and flush of biochemicals happens in roughly a period of 90 seconds is the key. So two things I want to highlight here for you. One is I realized in trying to answer that question about what makes it so difficult for people to tolerate unpleasant feelings. What I realized is not that we don't want to feel the whole range of what we feel. I believe we actually do. And why do we want to feel this whole range? Because that's our sense of aliveness. If we try to cut off from half of our experience, the unpleasant half, we're cutting off and we're numbing our aliveness. So we actually want to experience the whole range because we become more fully alive then. And we experience that aliveness. What we don't want to experience is the bodily sensation that helps us know what we're feeling. So what I realized is that what the thing that people are trying to avoid and distract from isn't the feeling itself from an emotional level. It's it's coming to know the feeling through bodily sensation. So all the avoidance is centered on getting away from that bodily sensation that helps you know what you're feeling emotionally. So that's the first thing to really keep in mind. Your turn away is an effort to get away from the bodily sensation, not necessarily truly from the feeling itself. The second thing to understand is that these bodily sensations are short-lived. And if you have the notion that you can handle something for 90 seconds, and it's really an upper range of 90 seconds because most feelings don't last that long, then here's the premise that I want you to try to live by. It's to understand that if you can ride one or more, and I'm going to underline the more, not just one wave, if you can ride one or more short-lived, up to 90 seconds, short-lived bodily sensation waves of one or more of 8 unpleasant feelings, then you can pretty much face whatever you need to face, and you can pretty much pursue whatever you want to pursue in life.
So can I butt in here?
Please.
This always feels like a good spot to ask a question that I've asked before, so I know the answer, but I think others may be wondering this too. If we feel like it's taking longer than 90 seconds,
yeah.
What's happening?
What's the deal? Okay. And so I talk about it in the book too. The notion is, it's what I call lingering feelings. Because a lot of people go, 90 seconds, you're like nuts, Rosenberg. Right?
90 days, right?
So, and you know, but there's reasons for it. So I talk about 3 different reasons in the book, Heidi. And that is, the first is, the more we repeat a memory or a certain thought, then what we do is we activate or fire off a neural firing pattern that approximates what first happened. Mm-hmm. So every time I think about that memory, then everything that comes along with that memory comes along. So if I keep thinking about the breakup with my boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, right? Then I'll keep running through that, and then everything that's tied to it's going to come back too. So it's going to feel like I'm sad for hours or days.
I just had a visual of like being in a washing machine,
yeah.
like just getting bounced around and around.
Exactly. You just keep it right. So the more you repeat a memory and the more you repeat a thought, then it's going to bring everything else along with it, and then you're going to have the sense that it's just lasting a long time. And it's only because it continues to be activated continuously.
So we have a question from Leah, and I know this has come up in some of our trainings as well, so others may be wondering about this. Where do you place fear? And her question is, does fear come under helplessness?
No, let me talk about fear separately. So let me respond to the other 2, if I may, real quick.
Yeah, of course.
And then let me respond to fear. So that's great. Great question. And no, I don't put fear or anxiety in those 8 for good reasons. Yeah. So the other 2 reasons that feelings feel like they linger is this idea of thought suppression, which was talked about. It's tied to what's known in the psychology literature as the white bear experiment. And that has to do with, if I told you not to think of a white bear, what do you think happens? So if you tell yourself, well, I'm just not going to think about that, whatever the thing is that's unpleasant, the truth is you actually are thinking about it more because you're telling yourself you're not going to think about it. Because in fact, if I tell you not to think of a white bear, you have to think of the white bear in an effort to not think about it. So it can't work. So it's paradoxical, and you end up thinking about the thing you don't want to think about more. So that makes it feel like feelings linger. And I happen to think that when people engage in negative self-talk or harsh self-criticism, that I think of it as a thought hijack of unpleasant feelings, but I think it activates that emotional state, feeling like the unpleasantness lingers. So that's the third main reason. So to the question about fear, the way, again, from my framework, the way psychology tends to define fear is that it's danger in the moment right now. So if you're not facing a tiger right now, and you're not facing a lion right now, or you're going to get up and do a presentation either via Zoom or in front of a live audience, then probably you're not facing a lion or a tiger and you're actually not in danger. And so my thing is, if you're not in true danger, stop using the word, because the words we choose to use activate the vibrational state and activate that state within us. And so why would you want to put yourself in a state of fear when you're actually not in danger? So stop using the word. I think that both fear and anxiety are misused and overused. And this would be an example of both. The same is true for anxiety. So what's the deal with fear then? If you're in danger, be fearful. I want you to be fearful because it's a stress reaction. You should be fearful. You're in danger, then do everything you need to do that's tied to that stress reaction. It's not an everyday thing. For most, it's not an everyday thing. For some, it is. So I want to not be dismissive of those who are in endangering positions. But for a great many of us, that is not our everyday state. So I did not include it because I only want it to be present when you're actually in danger. So that's fear is not included. Anxiety is considered, again, by psychology as, to the more formal description, is a diffuse apprehension of some aversive event in the future. So you're worried or concerned about some bad thing happening in the future. And the reality is if I were to ask 10 people what anxiety meant to them, I typically get 10 different answers. So for me, the word anxiety, again, overused, misused, it's kind of this diffuse, it's sort of up here someplace, but I feel it here, and it's just vague. So what I found that as a clinician is that I had to say, well, what does that mean to you? And then when we got more specific, it almost always went down to one or more of those 8 feelings. And the first one it tended to go to is vulnerability. The notion I could get hurt.
Right.
Right. So if we look at what we're all going through at the current time with the at least where this is positioned with the COVID pandemic, then what people are feeling, we can use the word anxiety, but I think it's heightened vulnerability. Mm-hmm. As a way to recast something. And it's interesting, if you change it to vulnerability, it actually now starts to feel more manageable, and it's actually a little bit more calming. Mm. And here's the beauty of it, and then I'll let you go, Heidi. Here's the beauty of it, is that if it's not vulnerability, it's one or more of the 7 unpleasant feelings. So that I think of anxiety generally as a cover for the 8 unpleasant feelings, please.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful what you're saying, and these are the things that I think we need to hear over and over again, especially as highly sensitive people. And so there's a couple of questions that have come up specifically, I think, from someone who's highly sensitive and has a lot of background in that based on the way that she's posing the question. So I really appreciate that as well. So the first one, she mentioned that an angry person can be true danger. So I'm wondering then, with what you just said, is it that when we're feeling that, maybe based on trauma or big T or small t traumas, that's vulnerability, but then we know what the fear is coming from is being vulnerable to another person? Or I think we've talked about this before, like how would you kind of think about that, and does it change when there's a trauma background?
Well, I mean, because the trauma becomes another layer to work with.
Yeah.
So the trauma can't be ignored.
Right.
Because the nervous system is developed in a particular kind of way, right? But it can be worked with, so that and oftentimes what I'll have people do is when you have a reaction to something, first of all, breathe. Mm-hmm. Take a breath so you can breathe into it and stay with it, as opposed to not swallowing and not breathing and tightening up your muscles. Because all of those will shut down on the experience. Mm-hmm. So plus all the other distractions. So breathe. Then if you have the time, start to pause and see if you can do a little bit of reflection. So and in those moments, you could be, am I in danger right now? Mm-hmm. Am I truly in danger? Is the person that's really angry with me, do I know that person to be hurtful in like a physical sort of way? Mm-hmm. Or do I know them to be hurtful in angry mean word sorts of ways, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, no. Okay, so then that's the first place. Okay, I'm feeling vulnerable. Okay, then is my reaction tied to just right now? And okay, no, it's not actually. It's tied to right now. And gee, what else is it tied to? Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so there's a little bit of kind of infusion of something else coming now. And
Mhm.
so if one has the opportunity to pause and reflect a little bit, then they can start to sort out those kinds of things. And the other is that it's understanding that our feelings are actually available um, for one of three things. So that again, and if you stay in the feeling, your experience and move through the feeling, then you get the opportunity to develop insight.
Yeah.
All right, and I think it can lead you to decide whether you use the feeling to make a decision, to express yourself, or to take some kind of an action.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that for those of you who are more sensitive, you may have to stay with that processing and just a little bit more. It's a little bit more effortful, and
Yeah.
it can make a difference.
So that it really ties in perfectly to two other questions that we have, and I want to
Please.
make sure that we address. And then all of a sudden, there's like five more that just popped in.
Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
okay. We
We'll
love
roll.
that. So one of them, I've seen Monsi mention this. Sue asked this as well about anxiety. Anxiety is kind of an overused word a lot of times, as is stress, as
Yep.
is fear. That's why we want to unpack this a little bit. And so I'm going to pivot just for a second. I don't want to overcomplicate this, but I think it's another framework. And one of the things I love about the idea of integrative neuroscience is we take all of these pieces and see what fits and what works for us. So one of the words that I find is often confusing for people, and one of the things I like about Evian Gordon's framework of integrative neuroscience, which we've shared throughout the summit, is that he looks at the brain and the nervous system as organized more like what we would call the triune brain, but essentially that it's sensing and then feeling and then thinking. And so a lot of times when people take the total brain assessment, and by the way, everyone here can take that. You guys can go to totalbrain.com/Heidi Hanna. You can take the assessment, you get the training for 90 days. We're actually going to do another debrief of that assessment on May 13th. So just keep that in mind. But when you take that, your cognitive and emotional and social capacities are organized in a way that really looks at sensing and then feeling and then thinking. So this was actually a question I asked Evian just on Sunday is, and I've done this a lot of times, so I know how to explain this, but I wanted him to do it. What's the difference? Because I fought him tooth and nail on that for a while, because I came from more of a psychology background of feeling and emotion really being kind of lumped together. And it's helped me to think of that more as a sensation. So that emotion is the non-conscious physical
Yes.
sensation, energy and motion that's
Yep.
stirring something up. And you make that differentiation here too. So the reason I say that is because Sue and Mansi and Arch and others who've gone through our stress mastery program, our training program, know that to me, anxiety is the physical sensation. It's a cue, it's a non-conscious indication, it's a sign, it's whatever, that something's not right in my body. So anxiety to me is that first thing. And as someone who struggled with an anxiety disorder, I always tell people, I can feel it. It feels like hot blood. That may sound really weird, but all I know is my blood feels hot, and that's how I know. And then I have all these other physical sensations. The feeling to me is more the emotional regulation, labeling what's going on that we're talking about here. So when you say anxiety, what I tend to do now is go, okay, that was my sensory cue. Now what's the feeling associated? And for me, I do find those 8 feelings super helpful to now the cognitive part of my brain can come online and label it and then figure out, what do I want to do with this? What's the energy or information it provides to fuel some sort of change? So the reason I say all of that is, Monsi's saying it's being used a lot, and Sue said, well, then is it potentially a crutch? And I would say, yes, it's being used a lot, but I think it's because we are feeling a lot of it. But the question, it doesn't give us any answers. It doesn't give us any guidance if we stay put in that, because it could be the noise from the construction. It could be my lack of sleep. It could be the caffeine I drank. It could be a lot of different things.
Right. Right.
How do we use it to help us? So that was just one thing I wanted to kind of offer up. And then the other
No, that's
one,
great.
based on sensitivity, kind of going back to that. And again, I would have my own personal thoughts, but I really want to hear yours, Joan, about highly sensitive people tend to need to process things deeply, like we do anyway, but we want to process deeply. We want to connect things. So I think our tendency is to then get stuck in a loop, trying to figure it out, trying to make meaning out of it. And so I wonder, the question was, how do you not extend the feeling past 90 seconds if you're trying to really work through it or get that information. It seems to me what you just said about breathing into it and actually kind of riding the waves that don't get you stuck feeling overwhelmed, but almost maybe some sort of oscillation of being able to go into it and ask good questions and breathe through it, but then also maybe move, maybe take some sort of action or do something with it.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
yeah, well, part of it I would think about as it's your signaling system.
Right.
And so you're not going to stay when you hear the at a train crossing, when you see the red lights and you hear the bells or whatever it is that's going off, then that's signaling something to you, and you don't stay stuck on the signal. You shift to something else, and if that's just, oh, I need to stop, I need to wait right here, then that's what you do. But you don't stay focused on the signal. And so my thing is, don't stay focused on the signal. Just understand your system is being signaled. Now part of it may be making sense of that signal. And again, not it, to the degree that one can do that. So I don't want to pretend like, because when there's, again, the understanding is when there's been trauma and that's tied into a highly sensitive reaction, it's also understanding that the trauma gets encoded in the brain differently.
Yeah.
And so you may have to ride it out a little bit longer, and you just have a longer signal.
Yeah.
Right? It's not as short as somebody else's signal.
Or to think in surfing phrases, we got a bigger wave. Like, and you know what? And I said this morning. It's easier when you're on the outside of it and you've really been practicing. By the way, if you guys watch my TED Talk, you'll know I don't surf. I don't want to go in the water. I've got all sorts of trauma, Jaws music in my head when I see the ocean, but I love the beach and I love the whole lifestyle and I love the idea of surfing. So the reason I say that is because as a highly sensitive person, one of the things I shared this morning, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we'll come back to this again next week, is that we have two things happening, really. We have sensory sensitivity, and that's the highly sensitive person trait. And that's the 15 to 20% of the population that genetically has a predisposition towards sensitivity, just like there's 15 to 20% of the population who has a predisposition towards resilience, and things don't affect them, like my husband. So it's good to be complementary opposites, as Yakov Smirnoff taught us last week. That said, the part of it that makes, I believe, and I know this is going to be a strong statement, but I think the part that makes a lot of us highly sensitive people suffer is what I call stress sensitivity. And that's wrapped up into negativity bias and a fixed versus growth mindset and habits of thought over time and perfectionism. Right. I mean, I could go all in with this kind of stuff. So as people are asking questions, Sonia, for example, says is the key a quick identification, and that can become a habit. And I think that is a big part, is actually identifying what we are feeling, what are the sensations, and what is that connected to, and how is that potentially giving us information that we can either say, this is what's happening and it's not going to last long and I'm going to just ride it through, or what I like to do is say, yes, and what is the gift in this? What's the possibility here? What lesson could I be learning? And if I can't learn something now, could it benefit me? And very quick story on that. Last night, I was super disappointed. I didn't get some grant funding I had applied for that I was told I was a shoo-in for. So it was like a big bummer, you know? And then this morning, I didn't get some grant funding that I knew I was a shoo-in for. And I literally turned to my husband, and this one was more painful. I remember I turned to my husband and I said, well, it was a good thing I got prepared for that last night, because I already worked through the pain. I've already realized it was actually vulnerability, frustration, a little embarrassment. I was like, what's in this for me? And it actually ended up fueling a better discovery of a better option that I wouldn't have had. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not leaned into it, felt what I needed to feel. And I think as highly sensitive people, especially, it's the hardest part because we feel it so deeply.
Right,
And
sure.
it just feels icky. Even if it's 90 seconds, I'm like, could it be 9 seconds? You know, can we shorten this? So we have a great question here I'd love to ask you, Joan, and that is from Jessica. How can we help manage or facilitate when other people are dealing with unpleasant feelings? And specifically, this question is about in the workplace scenario.
My thing is,
can we? I guess.
Yeah, no, you can. And for me, it's using a counseling skill, or what I might call a tuning skill. And that is to simply reflect the feeling back to them. Just simply notice what they're going through. When you notice the truth of what someone's going through, it tends to calm their nervous system down. So if somebody's, ranting and raving, then you look at the person in a very gentle, kind tone and say, boy, I get it. I can see you're super upset about this right now.
And that's so powerful. It's so powerful. It's so simple and it's so powerful to be heard.
Yeah.
I remember when you did that for me when I was freaking out. I was like, I feel like no one else really, and it was like, this must be really hard for you. And I just like burst open.
I think my belief is that it calms the nervous system down. Yeah. And it almost like pops the balloon immediately. It's, oh wait, I don't have to keep ranting and raving for somebody to notice.
And then our tendency is to be like, wait, no, I'm crying. No, I'm embarrassed. No, I don't feel bad. Are you okay? How are you doing? And you're like, don't. Just feel it. I hear you. That's hard. And it was like, oh my gosh, this little child in me is like, someone's paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. It's doing that. It's just being totally, just honor what the person's experiencing from your perspective. You can use your words or theirs, but just hold up a mirror and reflect the feeling right back to them.
So would you be willing to walk us through the experiential activity that you do sometimes to actually go through
How, what, where?
What's that?
How, what, where? Yeah, yeah. I mean, and the other question is, do you want me to touch on anything like speaking up or any of those other things, like or negative self-talk or?
Yeah, well, I want you to talk about all of it, but
Okay.
We already have requests here to do a workshop with you. So we will figure out what that looks like, what kind of time frame we can do and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm thinking is, could we do the experiential part?
Sure.
First?
Yep, absolutely.
And that way we can have that experience and then we can finish up the last 10 minutes or so with whatever you want.
I'm following your lead. So yeah, so for everybody that's listening, if you're game to find a nice comfortable position, then what I would do is have you do that. So whether that means sitting back in your chair, putting your feet on the floor, and I'll trust that you can be in a place where you can close your eyes so that you can actually center on the inside and not have your attention to go outside of you, because you actually want to notice what's taking place on the inside. So just start by finding first a comfortable position, and then I would also have you start by taking a few deep breaths. So let's start with a nice big inhale. So take a nice big inhale, and then just gently let that go. So as you're taking an inhale with a count of say 1, 2, 3, 4, then do an exhale that's just like that. An exhale that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, just let yourself settle and take a few more deep breaths. Nice deep breath in, hold, and then a nice deep breath. And let that exhale out. And let's do 2 more just like that. Nice deep inhale in. Hold it for a second or 2, and then a nice exhale out. And 1 more. So what I want to do is walk you through a series of different words, and what the big question behind each one of them is noticing how, what, and where. So let's start. Again, your eyes are closed, you're settled in. Notice how, what, and where you experience the feeling of feeling sad or sadness in your body. And then take a nice clearing breath. Take a nice deep breath in and then let that go. And then notice how, what, and where you experience either feeling angry or anger in your body. Same thing, take a nice clearing breath. Clear that. And then notice how, what, and where you feel the experience of disappointment or feeling disappointed in your body. Take a nice clearing breath. And now notice how, what, and where you just experience kind of feeling at peace and content. You're chill, you're good. Everything's okay. Just notice how contentment shows up in your body. And then take a nice clearing breath and clear that. And then notice how, what, and where you experience joy. So where do you, how, what, and where do you experience joy in your body? And then take a nice clearing breath. And then notice how, what, and where you experience love. Either love you give or love you receive. How, what, and where do you experience love? So what I want you to do with that one is to hold on to the experience. Take a nice deep breath and taste the sweetness of that experience, and then join us again, fully alert and re-engaged.
So with that, for those of you who are with us live and in the chat box, I want to just give just a moment of quiet for reflection and sharing, and then I'll share a little bit back as well, and with Joan. I know we all process things differently. I took a couple of notes. If you want to just jot notes to yourself, or if you want to type something in the chat box, and definitely don't need to share, but I think sometimes we have something moving or meaningful that we would like to share with people. So we do have a couple other questions too I would love to ask when we have a moment. I will say it was very interesting and very different from the last couple of times I did this. So I noticed interestingly, my sadness, anger, and disappointment were all in my eyes or my mouth area, which was kind of weird. I was like thinking, is this crying or frowning or what's going on? And is the vagus nerve involved? And then, because of course I get analytical, but just from a curious place, not trying to figure it out. And the others were definitely in my heart and my solar plexus. So what was nice about that is I think at other times the heaviness felt more in my heart. This time it was like the sadness or the heaviness was kind of appear more cognitively, and my heart was just really like expanded. And
cool.
So it was neat. Yeah, it was neat. So we've got some comments here as well about a lot of feelings in a short period of time. Jessica asked if the exercises in the book. I think it is, and Sammy mentioned too, there's a lot of practical exercises in the book. So
the whole book is, the book is filled with, there's a little story behind it, but I'll save it. The book is filled with, I think, 20 exercises and 14 journal prompts.
Amazing. So Sammy says it's like a manual. It's a life manual. It is Joan's work. I mean, it's her work as a counselor, but also a trainer of counselors, an educator of counselors, a mentor of counselors. So it really, there's a lot there. Susan, thank you for shared some of the feelings she was having there in chat as well. So a couple of questions I'd love to transition into, and I know you said you have so much more to share too, so I just really want to encourage everyone to really read the book. It is 90 Seconds to a Life You Love. I did also post it here in chat for
This is
you.
what it looks like for those who want to see it. This is what it looks like.
I was going to say I would have mine, but I'm not at my house. So here it is for you guys again in chat. We'll have it posted by the recording as well. I know I thought about that before we started. I was like, oh, I want my book to share, but it's all right. We're in transition right now. So yes, wonderful. So a couple of questions. Susan wanted to ask about anything you might say about lingering emotions, like longer difficult circumstances like a separation or a divorce or a trauma that often takes longer time to get through.
It's just understand. I think you go in it with the understanding that that there's a lot of pain associated with those kinds of changes and losses, and so that it's just, I think from a resilient standpoint, you go into it going, all right, this is not a delightful experience I'm going into. I'm going into a hard experience, and I know that a lot of stuff is likely to get evoked. I want to stay present to it. I want to learn from it, and I'm going to stay with it for as long as I need to stay with it to make my way through it. And so part of it is the mental set going into that. I was talking with somebody yesterday who works with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so, with entrepreneurs, it's taken tons of risks to go forward, right? So, and my thing is that in order to be a great entrepreneur, you have to be willing to build in disappointment to the whole process, so that you basically are disappointing your way to success.
I'm laughing because I just have to say, my friend Susan, who asked this, is one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs I know. We met through Entrepreneurs Organization. So I know that resonates with her. And I will also say that, the study I did of over 300 entrepreneurs, we know that entrepreneurs have a higher rate of mental health issues, substance abuse. I believe a lot of entrepreneurs are highly sensitive. That's what makes them so extraordinary, but it also makes it a wild ride sometimes. And I think, I've said this to other people that I know well, and I try to just nudge them gently enough to say, like, really understand that life as a highly sensitive person is not just like an aha because you read a book and say, oh, I get it now, I'm not alone. Like, that's a cool start to realize you're not broken and you're not alone. This is a lifelong journey. This is a different set of waves. And that's the best way I can say it, is we're going to have an amazing ride, and we're going to have higher highs and some deeper pains. And I think that there is a choice to, as you said, Joan, live life to the fullest. It really is a gift. It's a challenge and a vulnerability. I think if we don't appreciate what is so spectacular about that, it doesn't make us better than anyone. It just makes us have a different experience.
Yeah. What I want to add to what you just said, Heidi, is that in my experience of working with people who are highly intuitive, highly sensitive, or highly empathic, is that two things, my experience is two things need to happen for individuals like that don't necessarily happen. And one is the importance of setting boundaries.
Yes.
And the second, for some, it's actually sorting out whose feeling it is and finding a place to put your feelings as opposed to what you're absorbing in. Mm-hmm. So I'm adding another one or two here. The third is that highly sensitive people and empathic, intuitive tend not to speak up. And so the importance of using one's voice becomes essential. It's essential to developing confidence. It's essential for a first line of defense. It's essential for helping set boundaries. It's essential for so much. So it's really important. Actually, Sammy, the editor that I have is Elaine Aron's editor.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Very cool. I was just letting her know. So for those of you guys, I'm just mentioning a couple of things here in the chat box. I didn't put this out there to anyone specifically yet because I still wanted to make sure it felt like the right thing to do, and it does. So based on the great feedback and attendance we've been having about our Wednesday Highly Sensitive Person Hump Day Happy Hours. We are going to be talking next week about The Artist's Way.
Mm.
So I did post that in the chat box, a link to that book. I tend to have about 5 copies on hand at all times just to give them to friends. I've been doing this process since January 2nd without missing. And interestingly enough, it was January 2nd that my friend Bruce McEwen passed away. And I didn't know that all that was in sync the way that it was. So it's been a really helpful process. It's also helped me, I think, to increase my awareness and improve my ability to navigate the same things you teach, Joan. So I think that they're really complementary. I think it's good to get the tips and tools and techniques that we're talking about, and then to have a process, like Joan said in her book, you'll see things to journal about and prompts, so you can go to your morning pages and do those. But I also want to talk about not just the journaling and the morning pages, but the importance for us of a creativity date or an artist date, or how we nurture our sensitivity and really develop that as a strength instead of feeling constantly overwhelmed as a vulnerability. And then the last thing I just want to share with you guys is, and I know I've posted this a lot, but I think it will be very helpful for you. The course that I did most recently that actually was published, I think in January or February with LinkedIn, is how to manage feeling overwhelmed. And I talk about what I've learned from Joan in that. I also talk about Dr. Elaine Aron in that. And LinkedIn has made that free for everybody right now as one of their featured COVID coping resources. So you should be able to find that. I'll post it here with the replay, but the learning pathway is for people who have lost their jobs or looking for employment during these difficult times. You don't have to be in that situation to have access to the course. So that is free, and I'll make sure to post that. Also, another resource I just added, and I know a lot of you guys have found that already, is stresssensitive.org. So just so you know, between all of us, my .org websites, if you ever hear me say .org, that's like Heidi's little creative project. So bear with me. This is where I go, where I can easily put things up in the morning. So I get an idea and I'm like, my people need to hear this. There are 3 .orgs right now. Stresssensitive.org, which is a passion project. It's why we're doing these Wednesday sessions. Beachbrain.org, which is another passion project, and you can see the beach blend essential oils there. And the other one is brainrecharge.org, which is where we're posting information about our college mental health program. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. As far as next Wednesday's conversation, I think only the ones in April are set up this way, where they're separate links, which is why you keep getting a new link. What will happen moving forward is we'll have a standing kind of monthly link where you sign up once and you'll automatically get invited to all of them that month. And so I would say right now, if you're trying to keep everything in one place, stresssensitive.org is the easiest, because I can go there right now and make sure it's listed as an event, make sure you have the link to the book if we're doing a book that week, and those types of things. So yes, don't worry about keeping track of all of that. Once we post this at Global Stress Summit, we'll have the links there. We're like link overloading you, meaning you don't worry about anything other than just having a great experience. And then when we share the recording in the email, the links will be there. When it's posted, links will be there. If you go to the links will be there. And if you don't see a link at any point, let me know, post something, and either Sammy or I will get on it right away. And why will we get on it right away? Because we're highly sensitive and we don't know how to do it any other way. So that is one of the challenges. We have to learn how to turn it off too. It's part of the setting healthy boundaries. So on that note, Joan, I am so grateful for our conversation tonight. I know in many ways we just scratched the surface. So people are going to get your book, read your book. And what I'm going to suggest is that maybe we just do this. We're going to do the Artist's Way next week. Maybe we decide that once a month we're going to do a book, and we'll have, if the author's willing to come on and talk with us, we'll do that. Would you be willing to be our May book? Would that
Please.
be okay? Okay. So you'll come back and talk to us again once we've read the book?
And first of all, anything for you. And two, you know what, I understand that I sat on this material for 25 years and working with it, understanding it, trying to understand how it all fit together. And I felt like I was sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And so
are.
the more ways I have to get the work out into the world, the happier I am, because I know it just makes a big difference in people's lives. So,
Well, I
um,
told the group already the big news. I hope it's okay that I shared it with them that you do have a LinkedIn learning course coming out
oh yeah,
eventually. So you're getting fast tracked, which is amazing because this
yeah,
information is so necessary. So I will reach out to you and figure out which Wednesday works. Give us a little time to get through the book. And that way people will have the book and they'll get to come in with their questions, which will be really fun for everyone.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. Oh, and I love this, by the way. I just want to say, Orly mentioned that they are watching this with their 19-year-old daughter, a psychology student, and they enjoyed it so much. And man, nothing makes me happier to know that we're serving sensitive people, my brothers and sisters out there, but students as well, and especially those in that very important time frame. It's so important to know this. Had I known at 5 that I was highly sensitive, life would have been a lot easier for me to navigate,
Yeah,
made a
no,
lot more
absolutely.
sense. That said, I'm grateful for knowing now, and I'm grateful for knowing you. And by the way, if anyone needs tips how to get your friends to do stuff, just put them on a live webinar and ask them in public. I'm just just speaking my truth, Joan.
No, that's not, yeah, that's easy. I want to answer one question,
Please.
and if you will allow me the time, and if people are
Absolutely.
interested, because somebody asked a question that had to do with harsh self-criticism and negative self-talk.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm just, because so you talk about certain passion projects, this would be a passion project for
Mhm.
me. So the thing that for those of you who are still here, what I want you to understand is the way I think through it, and I talk about it in the book. And I put actually probably several pages to it. I think of harsh self-criticism and negative self-talk as a distraction from the same 8 unpleasant feelings.
Mm.
So all you're doing is using it as a thought hijack to move away from unpleasant feelings. So if you can, then it would be use when you start to catch yourself, and this is the awareness piece again, when you start to catch yourself using that kind of language against yourself, stop, notice, and then back it up and go, all right, what was it that I was feeling? And could just use the 8 as the shorthand before I started to trash myself. And the best quick example of this is I was doing an interview. I was waiting for the person on the other side to get stuff settled, and I could hear him. He could not hear me. And so this went on for minutes. And out of his mouth, I hear, "I'm so embarrassed." And then just that quick right after was, "I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot."
Mhm.
And so that's how quickly it happens.
Yeah.
But the issue was he was embarrassed. It's not that he's stupid or an idiot, right?
Because
And
embarrassed is more vulnerable and someone else feels like they're doing it and I can call myself stupid and then it feels safer. It's not,
right, well, it's a thought. It's a false sense of control. It's a thought
yeah,
hijack. Yeah.
yeah.
So I just want whoever asked that
Thank
question to
you.
have that, and to now use that and reverse course. So
So we will confirm this. I'm going to throw out a date for all of you, and we'll just make sure that this works. Just as a reminder, on May 13th, we're going to have Dr. Evian Gordon back to do our Total Brain Stress 360 debrief. It's actually the first time that we're combining both of those assessments. So 2 weeks after that is May 27th. That's going to be at least a tentative date. We'll double check that and make sure that works. If not, we'll do the Wednesday before, not a problem. But I want to let you guys know that means you got a little bit of time to work through both books essentially. If you want to do The Artist Way, that's fine. I'll share some links with you too, where you can actually watch some video on the content. The Artist Way is actually one that you can literally read one chapter and be ready for our discussion. You don't have to read the whole book. It's a process. You go back through it. With Joan's, if you want to be on the book discussion, same thing. You don't have to read the whole book too, kind of go through and she navigates it. I have to say, I work with a lot of authors who are like, buy the book, because I don't want to tell you anything because I want you to buy the book. This is not that. This is like, there's so much in this and you will want to continue to go back through it. So I know we've already had a lot of people say that they have gotten the book. Sonia says, absolute, refined, pure gold, Joan, life-changing. Carl says, awesome discussion. Thank you very much, both of you, and a lot of wows and high fives. So,
Awesome.
okay, until next time, you guys, we will definitely see you again. Highly sensitive people, all those links. And one of my other issues is attachment issues. I have a hard time saying goodbye. So we'll just say, see you later. See you next time. Thank you so much, Joan. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.